So that's going to be our first vocabulary word is sample space. We're going to kind of do vocabulary throughout this whole page. So if you need to do like a little star there or something, because we might do an example and then another vocabulary word. All right, sample space is all outcomes. Okay, J-1 is all of the possible outcomes for sample space. All right, so we're going to create kind of a bag of things here. I'm not going to draw the bag yet because we're going to draw the things first. So let's draw a box or a square. I'm going to do a circle, an X, and another square. On the next row, I'm going to do a circle, circle, and then 2 stars, star, star. Rolando, phone away. Okay, and then we're going to do a square, 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 circle. All right, if you want to draw like a little bag around that to show that like this is what we're picking from, you can, or you can just like put it all together. So beautiful. All right, so if I'm reaching in and I'm picking an object out of this bag or one of those stickers, and we want to think of all of our possible outcomes, I reach into that bag, what's something I could pick? A square. What else could I reach into that bag and get? A circle. What else? Star. Anything else? An X. So when we talk about the sample space, we want to talk about the number, how many possible outcomes are there. So when we look at squares, how many total squares did we have? I had 5. How many stars? 2. And how many X's? Just 1. Okay, so this is the list of the sample space. So if a problem asks you to list the sample space, you're listing out what options do you have. Most problems are going to ask you for a total sample space. So how are we going to find out how many total items are in that bag? Yep, add them together, or you could count if that's easier for you. So 5 plus 4, that's 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are 12 total objects. So our sample space would be 12. Again, if it asks us to list our sample space, that's when we're saying how many of each are there, what are the different options. If it just asks what is the sample space, then we would just count up together and say there's 12. All right, next up we're going to do a new word, probability, which is what this chapter is all about. So it's good that we have to know what it means. All right, if I ask Miss Sawyer, are you going to eat lunch today? And she says, probably. What does that mean? Yeah, most likely. Does it mean she is? Is it a for sure yes? No, it's kind of somewhere in the middle there, but she's probably going to eat lunch. That's kind of where we get that word probably from, is from probability. Probability is a number between 0 and 1. And it's to represent how likely an event will happen. Okay, a number between 0 and 1 to represent how likely an event will happen. Give you some time to write that down. And I remind myself not to talk. That is we use a capital P, and in parentheses we're going to say our event, so we would say A in this case. That A is just that standard, we don't know what it is. So we're going to say probability of A equals, and now this is going to be a fraction. On the top, it's the amount of times A will happen. So how many A's are in the bag, how many times is A happening, over our total amount of outcomes. Or our sample space. Okay, really important to have that written down. All right, this is on a scale between 0 and 1. So we want to talk a little bit about that, between 0 and 1. What does that look like? So I'm going to make a number line here. So I'm going to do a line. At one end of our line, we have 0. At the other end of our line, we have 1. What comes exactly in the middle of a line? 0.5? Or as a fraction, it would be 1/2. Okay, now percents can come to us as decimals, fractions, or we can look at them as percents. So what would 0 be as a percent? 0%. What's half as a percent? 50. Yeah, when something's 50-50 or 50% chance, so that's 50%. What would 1 be as a percent? 100%. Good. Now, when we talk about probability in real life, we don't always find those percents. We don't always find the decimals. But we tend to actually be able to talk about them in words. If you have a 0% chance, like right now, it is a 0% chance that it is 80 degrees outside. What does that mean? It won't happen. It's for sure not going to happen. Right now, if you look outside, is there a chance it's 80 degrees outside? No, dude. There's snow on the ground. Outside right now of our classroom, no. Okay, so that's going to be impossible. So at that 0%, we want to write in that word impossible. It will not happen. Or we can think of it as like, it will never happen. Okay. I don't think she'll get to it when she gets to it. Right now we have somebody already out at the bathroom. So why don't you keep caught up with your work. Alright, so 0 means it's impossible. It's never going to happen. What would happen if something's 100% chance? It will happen. It's for sure going to happen. So that's for certain is a word we use, or like it's for sure. It's going to happen. So 100% chance right now you are in math. Is this class all going to set and change to language arts? No. 100% chance right now you are in math. So what about 50% chance? What does it mean if you have like a 50% chance at something? Yeah, it's like half and half. We call that even chance. An even chance. So it might happen, it might not happen, but it's right down the middle. That's a 50-50 shot. But we have percents and decimals that happen between these three kind of big ideas. If something is between an even chance and for sure, it's certain. So let's say there's a 75% chance of rain. What does that mean if there's a 75% chance of rain? It's not going to rain? Oh, it might rain. Should you bring an umbrella if it's 75% chance? Probably. It's probably going to happen. So in 0.5 and that 100% is likely, meaning it's going to probably happen. It's likely to happen, but it's not for sure. So what about if you had like a 12% chance of rain? Probably not. Are you going to be probably okay without an umbrella if there's only 12% chance of rain? Yeah. It's probably not going to happen. It might, but not very likely. So we call that unlikely if it's in between 0 and 0.5. All right, we have one example here. We're going to do a couple probabilities. We're going to find the probability, and then we'll classify it depending on what that probability is. Okay. So for our experiment here, we're going to roll a dice. Now, some of you might remember that your teacher maybe said if there's only one dice, what do we call that? A die. Apparently, Miss Snyder had a really fun fact.
Yeah. Apparently now it's okay to use the word dice for one or many. So you can just say a dice.
Okay, so we're going to be working with a dice.
So Google says, oh, you have it.
Yeah. So I held it up at you.
Being on top of it.
All right, so this is a dice. Let's talk about our sample space first. So what is the sample space of a dice? How many options are there? 6. What are our options? When I roll a dice, if I pick it up and roll it, what are my options? What could I get? 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So there's 6 options when I roll a dice. Okay? So I want to find out what is the probability of rolling a 5. And I want a 5 exactly. I want to be able to roll that dice and get exactly a 5. So when we find that probability, we're going to say how many 5s are there on the dice. There's only one 5. So I'm going to do 1 over how many total options were there on the dice. 6, so 1 over 6. And we might write that as a fraction or a simplified fraction. That's simplified. Or we might write it as a decimal. Or we might write that as a percent. So as a decimal, how can I figure that out as a decimal? Yeah, remember, what does that fraction line really tell us? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Divide. So in my calculator, I can do 1 divided by 6. If I don't know if that's simplified, I can always hit that fraction button with the 2 boxes. Yep, it's simplified. As a decimal, it goes 0.1666666666667. How can I show that that 6 is repeating? Put the line over it, yeah, so 0.16 repeating. And how do I make that into a percent? We could do times what? What does percent mean? Out of how many? 100. So we could do times 100, and we see it's about 16.6%. So do I want to round that to 16% or round it to 17%? 17%. Good. We might do decimals, but we're not going to today. We'll just round to about 17%. So rolling a 5 is about a 1 in 6 chance, 0.16 repeating, or about a 17% chance. So that's our actual probability. Let's classify that probability. Is that impossible, unlikely, an even chance, likely, or for sure? Unlikely, good. It's in between the 0 and the 50%. 17% is in that unlikely spot. All right, what about the probability of means we're going to do the parentheses, rolling an even number? So again, I'm going to roll my dice, and I'm looking for an even number. First off, let's make sure we all have the same definition. Which numbers are even on the dice? Okay, 2. What else? 4 and 6. Okay, those are the only even numbers on the dice. 2, 4, and 6. If you need to write that to remind yourself what an even number is. So how many even numbers was that? 3 out of how many numbers total on the dice? 6. Can I simplify that fraction? If we're not sure, we can always put it into decimals, 3 over 6, and then we hit that fraction button. Yep, that's 1/2. Okay, to get it back to a decimal, I just hit that circle with the 2 boxes again. 0.5. And if I want to make it into a percent, I can do times how much? 100. And that would be 50%. So if we classify this one, is it impossible, unlikely, even chance, likely, or for certain? Even chance. Good. All right, we're going to do 2 more. So if you're running out of room, try and squeeze 2 more in. All right, our next one, we're going to do a probability of. When you hear that word probability of, that means we're going to do a capital P parenthesis. So when we see that, that's how we read it. Probability of not 3. This one has that word not in it. What does that mean if I want to not roll a 3? I don't want it. I want anything other than a 3. So what are my options on a dice other than a 3? 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. Anything but a 3. I can't have a 3. Okay? So how many options do I have there? 5. So 5 out of 6. Again, we're going to simplify that. So we'll do 5 divided by 6. If we need to hit that fraction button, we can. It's the same, so that means it's simplified. As a decimal, it's 0.833333333333. So we can write that as 0.83, and again, that 3 is repeating, so we put that line just above that 3, because it's 333333333. Okay, and to get it into a percent, we do times 100. Again, we're going to do, let's actually do it per decimal this time. It'd be 83.3 or 83.4. Good, we stay 83.3. So is that impossible? Unlikely? Even chance? Likely or for certain? Likely, good. It's in between 50 and 100%, so that is likely. All right, last one. You can try and sneak it in, Probability of getting a 13. Probability of getting a 13. And this is, we're just using a normal dice, our 6-sided dice. So I want to roll it, and I want to get a 13. How many 13s are on my... Yeah, is there a 13? No. So it's 0. We could write it as a fraction as 0 over 6. There's no 13s out of 6 options, but that just makes 0. 0 is the same thing as a decimal, as a fraction. To make it a percent, what's 0 times 100? 0. So it's just 0, but we have to put that percent sign behind it, so we know it's 0%. And if we classify that, what would it be? 0%, it's impossible. Remember, if it's in between 0 and 50, then it's unlikely. But if it's 0%, it's impossible. All right, that is it for your notes. There is a quick check today, and I want everyone to do their quick check. Everyone's going to start off the trimester doing your quick check. Okay, so you need to open up your computer, and everyone needs to get logged into school.